Welcome back to Grapple Theory, and this week we're doing a very special preview show, Attack 15-year anniversary. We're joined by Mark Andrews, Martyn John of Attack. Guys, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having us on. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. Martyn, you all good?
Yeah, really excited. Thanks for making the time with us today. It's a really busy time for Attack. So yeah, really cool.
No, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And I was going to say you're spot on. Like it has been. I mean, I always start generally with the podcast by asking our guests like what the last sort of like year or so has been like for you guys. And it feels like it's been a real growth period again for Attack. But it feels like it's been that way ever since you returned after the pandemic. Like, Mark, I'll come to you first. But like when you reflect on like the last couple of years for Attack, like how do you see it in terms of how far you guys have come?
Yeah, it's funny, right? So it's hard. When I brought back Attack back in 2023, definitely 2023, wasn't it? Yeah, 2023.
I was doing the math in my head last night. I was like, what's the time?
It was the same year my daughter was born. So that's 2023. I should know this. Yeah, back in 2023, it was funny because obviously I wanted it to kind of come back and kind of make an impact, because I felt like, you know, Attack did make an impact pre-COVID when we were kind of one of the staple companies in the UK. But obviously the entire landscape of wrestling in Britain has changed over COVID period. So I was kind of interested to see what the response would be like. And luckily there was this huge response, but there was still a lot of rebuilding after that, you know. So we did the Attack is Back weekender, which was incredible. And then I felt like once that initial return kind of happened, we were just kind of back to the building again. Do you know what I mean? So it was back to doing the shows, trying to build up a regular audience. And honestly, I would say, even though we've done some really amazing and cool things over the last 3 years, now is kind of the time where it really feels like that hard work is kind of starting to pay off. Obviously, we've got the biggest show, in our history. Like the biggest show in 15 years of the company is the 15-year anniversary. So that's already a huge achievement that we're really excited for. But the fact now that we found a new home in London, that's something we've been working on for like the last 3 years, trying to get back into London. And yeah, we're really excited for that as well. So it's nice. I think we've had a lot of growth over the last 3 years, but a lot of it, to be honest, has been more behind the scenes, I think. And, we have done some bigger venues over the last few years, but really it's all been kind of culminating towards now. Like now is where I feel like we're seeing a bit of the payoff, right, Martyn?
Yeah, I think from like a fan perspective, when you look at companies, you kind of see the end product of it. So I think you measure things like growth and success by like either like something going viral or running a big show or bringing a big name over or something like that. And what we've done, bigger shows, and we've been really lucky that we've managed to get like a consistency, almost selling out pretty much every show we're running at the moment, at least in Cardiff. Like Mark's saying, a lot of that work that we've been trying to do is laying a foundation over the past couple of years. Behind the scenes, so just unglamorous stuff that and think about like logistical stuff and getting assets into the company, like we've got a van, which sounds silly, but like it enables us to run lots of different venues and do different things. So yeah, it's been kind of we're starting to see, I think, the payoff of it, but there's still like a big hill to climb. But I think our real hope is to kind of like I was a fan of Attack Pro Wrestling before I was ever involved in Attack Pro Wrestling. So I think my first show was Press Start 2 back in 2012, something like that.
An OG fan.
OG in the small room of Catay's. And so to me, British wrestling, I think it was such a unique time and such a hotbed and a boom. I still think it is that. I mean, if you look at Attack shows, we're selling them out. I think the talent is just as good, if not better than ever. Because I think it's really hard. You have to try and manage expectations of people missing big names, but then also you have to give these new guys a chance. Because if you look at the state of the industry now in the UK, it's incredible. The talent the depth of talent is insane. And I think for us, it's like trying to know that you're not going to recapture that kind of boom necessarily, or you can't rely on that. But just moving Attack back into the foreground of the conversation about independent wrestling shows, because obviously we took a hiatus for a few years, and I think the first kind of 2 years of what we've been trying to do is reestablish Attack back in that scene. And now I think we've got our home base back, and I think we've put on some amazing shows, and we've done a lot of logistical stuff behind the scenes. I think we're now in a position to be like, Attack is. It sounds weird. Attack was back in 2023, but I think really 2026 is the year where it's going to be Attack is back in a very big way.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that. I love that. And Mark, that's something like there are loads of things there that you mentioned that I want to pick up on. But one of them is the talent pool we've got here. Because Mark, as someone who, again, was part of the scene and obviously still is, but was part of the scene in that sort of boom period, 2017, 18, 19. I want to get your thoughts on the fact that, like, I often say to a lot of people that, again, similar to what you guys were saying, is that now I think there's less like big names, like huge names on the scene. But I think the talent we've got now is consistently better than what it was in like 2017, 18, 19. I think there's more good to great wrestlers now than there was back then. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree, to be honest. And I mean, don't get me wrong, 10 years ago was a very, very special time in British wrestling, especially because I guess the thing is, 10 years ago and the boom of British wrestling, it was so long overdue. You'd had, for me, for example, like, by the time I did my first Progress show, I'm pretty sure I was 8 years into my career. Let's put that into perspective. Like Tommy Vril, who's now like an up and comer on the scene, he's like a year and a half, 2 years into his career. And the opportunities he's getting 2 years in are like so much bigger than ultimately that first show I did at the garage, 8 years in. So really, I think 10 years ago, you had all this talent that had already been wrestling for 8, 10, 12 years. You had, me, Pete Dunne, Eddie Dennis, Dave Mastiff, Rampage Brown, Nathan Cruz, Mark Haskins. The list goes on and on and on. And then you had all these new, incredible, generational talents like Will Ospreay, Tyler Bate, and you think it was a really special time because of that. However, the scene was nowhere near as strong as a whole in terms of wrestlers. And I know from a fan perspective, it might seem like that's crazy because it was so hot back then. Really what made it hot back then was very, very cool branding from places like ICW and Progress. So that's what made it a hotbed, right? The talent was already there. Talent was there regardless of those cool brands being present. But those cool brands gave a platform to these fantastic wrestlers who've been working hard at their craft for 10 years. Now, 10 years later, it's kind of been normalized. I think fans to an extent have been desensitized to the fact that okay, wrestling is cool again. There's these indie companies that are kind of hot. It almost reminds me we're almost 10 years later than America. There was that time when Ring of Honor was super hot and then PWG was super hot. And then a lot of guys went on to WWE and then the scene was kind of it's not new and shiny anymore. Now it's it's good, but it's not we don't have that honeymoon period that we felt back when Kevin Steen was on the indies and El Generico and stuff like that, right? So that's kind of what we're going through now. But the truth is, like you said about talent, it's crazy. I remember, just not to go on a tangent, because I was talking about this in the pub last night with James Ellis and a few of the wrestlers, is that the talent 5 years ago, I remember there being a big conversation amongst fans of Brit Rest is dead, WWE and COVID has ruined it, and we've got no big names. But you think back then, there was still Michael Oku on the scene. No one even knew who Leon Slater was back then. And he was around, but no one really gave him the time of day, right? Connor Mills was on the scene. There was all these amazing, Jay Joshua was on the scene. They were all there. They just didn't have the attention on them. And I think sometimes it's really easy. I'm not blaming fans for this by any stretch, but when you invest time and effort and money and merchandise and all that type of stuff, when you invest all that time, you're like, these guys are stars. When in reality, all these guys needed was 3 or 4 years to be in front of the fans' eyes for long enough for them to invest. And now look at Michael Oku. Michael Oku's a huge star. Leon Slater, look at him, you know what I mean? Connor Mills, Jay Joshua. And then the ones after that, your James Ellis's, your Tommy Vrils, you know what I mean? The guys who are coming up. And I just think it's crazy. I think sometimes, the nature of wrestling, the industry, is that it is quite fickle. It's very, very fickle in that it feels like it changes overnight, and it's this person signed to a big company, they're gone, the scene is ruined, they've taken their ball and gone home, the whole thing is destroyed, when really it's not. It's constantly moving. And I think the scene, again, from behind the scenes, the boring logistics that Martyn talked about, but from the industry as a whole in the UK, is that the schools are much stronger now than they were 10 years ago. They produce talent not only much faster, but much better as well. And really, it just needs those platforms, like your Progresses and ICWs back in the day. These days, now your Rev Pro or your Eve or hopefully your Attacks, to actually just give the audiences the chance to see this up-and-coming talent and be like, oh, wait, they are stars. We're just not familiar with them yet. So, sorry, to answer your question, I do think the talent is much better now as a whole. It just might not feel as special because we've had 10 years of seeing everything. We've seen a career in Pete Dunne and Gunther and Ospreay go from this to this, you know what I mean? So it's almost I think because we've seen it, it doesn't feel as special, but it definitely is stronger.
Absolutely.
To answer your question, yes.
Yeah, I do agree.
I think you touched on something there that they don't want to drag onto this tangent more, but like something you touched on there is, from like a WWE UK and NXT UK standpoint, I know a lot of fans have opinions on it and things like that, but I think something that you're actually seeing now kind of pay some dividends to that is the quality of training in the UK and schools, because you've got guys, I'll give Mark a plug to the left. Like you've got guys like New Wave across the country or other schools across that are being able to have been in that system or being able to learn from guys like Shawn Michaels or William Regal or like really top guys and implement a new standard, not just of like skill and of training, but also like the professionalism that goes in it as well. So you see guys like a Tommy Brill who've been training with people who've trained with the very best and who have been on TV and who have done those things. And I think it's one of those things that, I know everyone has polarizing opinions on all of that, rightfully so, I guess, but something that you will see, I think, in the next sort of, 3 years is big stars and a higher level of talent coming through the British scene because of that. And because the fact now we have schools that are not just country best in class schools, but we have world class professional wrestling schools in the UK. A lot of which, to be honest, I'd say in the southwest and Wales has an incredible scene for that. And I think what we are producing are just guys who might only be a year into their career, but they are so almost polished already. Obviously, it's going to take time and reps in front of crowds and it doesn't come overnight. But the fundamentals of what people are doing. I mean, we run these. We started a sister promotion called South Wales Pro Wrestling, and it was during the kind of height of cost of living, and we wanted to do things that were like bridging that gap between kind of trainees and trainee shows into getting their first kind of opportunities in front of crowds, but also like. It was cost of living. One of the things we used to get quite a lot was I'd like to go to more shows. I just can't afford it. I can't take my family. So we wanted to create shows that were, easier and more accessible for families. Because that's something I genuinely really believe that wrestling should be for everyone, and there should be points of that. And that was our way of being able to do that. And the guys coming from not just Mark's school in New Wave Cardiff, but also New Wave and Brendan's, and around the areas, also great guys from Ireland coming over as well. The guys are coming from that. They might only be like 4 matches in, but the standard of wrestling that they're able to do is just mind blowing. Guys like Aaron McRae, and there are so many great guys who are going to be emerging stars. And you can just see it. And in 2 years' time, they're going to be on big shows and everyone's going to be like, oh, we're in a height of wrestling again. You can just see it.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I think like that leads us really nicely into sort of like running through quickly the sort of the match card that you guys have set up for this 15th anniversary show. Because again, one name that you mentioned there a lot is Tommy Brill. And Tommy Brill is incredible. Like someone who's come through so quick and been so good so fast, which is unreal. And like, I just remember I remember seeing him at Riot Cabaret. His Riot Cabaret debut was the first time I saw him in person. And I was like, oh, this is like just Cara Noir, but opposite. But like in terms of his presentation, in terms of what he's doing. And now the fact they're facing each other, like I said, when I had him on the podcast, when I had Tommy on the podcast, I was like, it feels like presentationally and character-wise, they're two sides of the same coin. They're very polar opposite, but like what they offer is that theatrical element, that over-the-topness that you love in professional wrestling. And to see them going one-on-one, I think is a perfect platform for Tommy to push on against someone who's had that experience, about someone who's been around that long, like Cara. Like, I mean, that must be a match that like you were really looking forward to putting together. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we're very grateful that it's happening at Attack. I think, this is a match that potentially could have happened in London somewhere, like a Riot Cabaret. Could have happened at New Wave Wrestling, where, Tommy kind of began his training. It could have happened to Pro Wrestling Chaos, where both wrestlers are used. But I'm really grateful that it has happened at Attack. I think, pre-COVID, before Cara Noir became the kind of UK star that he was, like becoming the Progress champion and kind of really blowing up, he was Attack Pro Wrestling champion. I do think that historically, over the last 15 years, we have always had an eye for talent. I think still to this day, it's the case. The fact that we're kind of pushed down, well, not pushed away in Wales, but like the attention's always going to be on London. The attention of the fans will always be on London and the London companies. But if you look historically, like Cara Noir was champion at Attack before he was champion in Progress. Nino Bryant was champion in Attack before he had his big run in Rev Pro. Jay Joshua was Attack Pro champion before he was Rev Pro champion. Nico Angelo was Attack Pro champion before he was Riot Cabaret champion. The Freshnas were tag team champions before they recently had their debut in Rev Pro. Now, don't get me wrong. I know it might sound like I'm a little bit bitter. That I'm like, obviously, as a wrestler with my wrestling brain, I want all these incredible young talents to advance to get to the bigger shows. But I also want people to be aware that actually these guys come from somewhere. It happened back in the day with CCK. For years, for ages, Progress would not book CCK. They were over as hell in Attack Pro Wrestling. They were over as hell in Fight Club Pro. And the second they pulled the trigger and they booked them, blew up, right? I'd even argue it goes as far back as myself, Eddie Dennis, Flash Morgan Webster, Wild Boar, and Pete Dunne, right? We were blowing up in Attack, and then we went to Progress. Luckily that was good for us because we all needed a help and hand in the career. But
we were saying, this is something we were saying. Like, we were saying this the other day, is like, every time, right? So you'll see, this happens to us all the time. You'll see, like, we post a match graphic and there'll always just be one or two comments like, I can't wait to see this at Rev Pro. And it's like, just get on the train, man. And I think that's kind of why we're looking to try and run more, we're like, that's why we're looking at a London return. That's why we're looking, we recently returned to Bristol. That's why we're coming to London again. It's like, I think we've learned that we've got to try and take it on the road and show that. But,
there's no point putting on these tremendous shows if it's not accessible to more people, you know what I mean? But going back to the original question, because I'm going on a lot of tangents here.
No, I love the tangents. I love the tangents because that's exactly what it is, like you were saying, like, even like you say, Cara Attack. And like, I remember Cara was a name that was like sort of being put out there. And then I remember, I think like the big break for him was when he faced Pac down in Riptide in Brighton. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, all the eyes were on him. But then like you say with Cara, like with Jay, like with Nino, like with even people like Kanji, who I think you guys have pushed, and although she didn't have the belt, but you guys pushed and Resurgence pushed long before like Rev Pro and Progress and places like that. It's then, as a fan, to look back and be like say for Tommy Vril in this instance, like if and when, I'm sure it's coming, Tommy gets those big titles, those big opportunities, to be a fan and be like, oh, like I remember seeing him come through Attack and stuff like that. Like as a fan, that's what gives you that great feeling of seeing someone from that inception reach that pinnacle.
100%. Well, and I think that's the thing. That's why this one feels particularly fitting at Attack, this match, because Cara was the guy who, we put the belt on before COVID. Unfortunately, his title reign never technically ended. It got vacated as the company went on hiatus. But he was someone who then blew up after that, and he was a really big part of Attack. And he hasn't been back since. Since we've returned, this is his return match, and ultimately he's going up against kind of like the new Cara Noir. And not to say that Tommy is just that, because I think Tommy Vril is his own wrestler. Tommy Vril is the first Tommy Vril. But it's an incredibly fitting match. And I think the fact that we can get almost, the old guard in against the new guard, you know what I mean? A guy who we really, we valued very highly in Cara Noir, and now against a guy who's on his way to having that journey himself. I'm just really glad that not only do we get to do it at Attack, but we get to do it at our biggest show ever, and potentially the biggest show that's the biggest indie show that's ever happened in South Wales. Like, I think we are maybe there already or on our way. I'm not entirely, it's close to it anyway. Yeah. So yeah, it feels really special that we get to have that match, I think, and yeah, I'm psyched for it as well. I don't know what's going to happen in that. I'm very excited just to watch as a fan, to be honest.
Absolutely. Martyn, what about you? We'll come to another match we were talking about before we started recording, and that is again James Ellis versus Sean Smith, which is again a wild match because I said it to Sean when we recorded the pod with him, but I'd listened to the Blackout since their debut album, and then I didn't see the announcement go out live. Someone messaged me and being like, is this the guy that sits in the front row at Attack facing James Ellis? I was like, yeah, that's Sean Smith from the Blackout. What the fuck's happening? What is this? Like, why is this happening? But like, it's such a mental thing to even consider. But the fact is that again, Sean and Hudson as well have been such a big part of Attack since your return that it seems again very fitting. It's just a bit of a weird one to get your head around.
Yeah, it's the whole thing with Attack Pro Wrestling is we're weird and wonderful, right? So I think you've got to have, it wouldn't be Attack Pro Wrestling if there wasn't something somewhat absurd on the show. And I'd say that, but this isn't going to be a joke match. Like, Sean is putting the work in. He's really working hard for this. I'm really excited. James Ellis, we talk about people who, deserve much bigger platforms, and I think he's getting there. James Ellis is consistently he's one of the best characters. He's a fantastic promo, but he's really underrated as far as just how good of a wrestler James Ellis is. And I think this is a really good opportunity for him to kind of show that in a very different way. But yeah, I mean, Sean Smith and Hudson, I mean, this is a match, really. This is a feud we've had running for Attack 3 years in the making now, I think. So yeah, and for us, like the Hudson, I mean, when we initially when Hudson initially won the 24/7 championship in a raffle, well, technically he never won it in a raffle. Kanji won it for him. So we've always made that point. He never actually won the belt in a raffle. There was a pinfall for it. That was just kind of a thing that we kind of put together quite quickly as like what would be a nice moment. And then I think when we saw the reaction to it, I mean, Hudson's such a good kid as well. And like, I know Sean said the same thing, but he always says to us to see how it's helped him grow in confidence as well is just, and that's to me, that's what wrestling is about. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a great match. Sean is putting a lot of effort into it. I know that. James, I think, is really looking forward to getting in the ring with him and beating him up. And yeah, I think it's not just like a kind of weird match that's on the card. It's actually, when you think about it, to our fan base, it's something that has been building for 3 years, and James Ellis has every right to want to get Sean Smith in the ring. He keeps bringing this kid to shows who keeps ruining his, cost him his title. So yeah, it's going to be it's one of my favorite things that's happening at Attack at the moment. It's going to be great. Yeah, Mark, what do you think? Like, has Sean been decent? He's been putting him through a few paces, because I remember when we had him on, he said at that time when we recorded, he'd had one training session with Wild Boar and thrown up 25 minutes in because he decided to eat a sausage roll half an hour beforehand. Has he learned from that?
When he sent me that message and a video from training, I was like, "Yep, the Wild Boar. That training's gonna be. He's gonna flip through the paces. Sausage roll was not a good idea.
Welcome to the business, kid.
Welcome to the business, Sean." Do you know what? I say this to Sean regularly. He used to do breakdancing when he was like a teenager, I guess. And I always hit him. I'm like, dude, I wish that the kind of people who walked into my school had your natural ability. He's the front man of a really good band. You know what I mean? So he has his stage presence incredibly well. He knows how to work a crowd in that sense, but also his physically, he just goes for it. He's just like, I'll ask him to do a bump and he'll do 5 straight there. And I'm like, we can slow down, but he's just going for it. So, and he always says to me, he's like, yeah, if only I'd started 10, 20 years younger. And I'm like, yeah, but even now it's never too late. So he's doing really, really well. And, I personally think he's going to smash it. Yeah, I mean, we will not know until the day. Let's see how angry James Ellis is on that night in particular. But I do think that, that match is going to be tremendous. Yeah. Sean's approaching it with a lot of charisma, a lot of enthusiasm, and a reckless abandon for his own safety. Yeah. So I think that those are the combinations you need, right? That's what you need, 100%. I love that. It's going to be a crazy match. Really looking forward to it. And again, Mark, you're on the card yourself as well. As well as doing behind the scenes stuff, you're giving yourself a match as well, which I think was inevitable. But again, Josh Holley, another great rising star that we're talking about from the scene. I mean, for you in terms of actually facing Josh, is it, show-wise, is it tough when you've got someone like Josh who's so clearly so incredibly talented and yet is making life very difficult for you at Attack at the moment, to have to try and put them in their place there? Yeah, I do think that is the hardest part, to be honest, because, I had a big hand in training Josh over the years, and Josh has been around longer than a lot of people think. I know recently he's had his well-deserved flowers and he's really kind of taking a step up, but he's been around for a long time. He's a real student of the game. I think that's what makes it hard, is that I really respect him. I think the world of him. I actually think he is, like I mentioned all those other names before, he's one of the guys that he deserves bigger platforms. He's getting it now. It's just a shame he's such a prick. I'm like, dude, come on, just bring down the ego, just be easier to work with, and I'll support you fully. So that's the biggest disappointment for me. But as you said, as the boss, I do have to put him in his place, and annoyingly, it just happens to land on the biggest show ever. Why do I do it to myself? Why do I always decide to wrestle on the same day as I'm running the show? Anyone who's backstage at Attack, Martyn especially, will know this. Seeing me run around at my peak of stress, 5 minutes before doors, checking if the bar's okay, checking if the doors are okay, getting ready for my match, half in my gear. That will most likely be me at the 15-year anniversary show. I was going to say, if we pull back the curtain a little bit, is it
when you're out there on a show day and you've got a match, are you in the ring thinking about what you need to do in the ring, but also like about anything else from the show? Is there anything else in your mind being like, oh, I need to do this after I get out?
Honestly, like, and going back to the unglamorous behind the scenes stuff, it's like the 5 minutes before doors and the curtain isn't up for the entrance.
Yeah. It's
and every time I'm like, not up. Like,
I've never seen Mark be able to go through a show without being stopped every 3 minutes. And like,
if that's a good break.
That's generous. That is generous. Yeah. So I think he wrestles on shows purely to take years off my life. Because inevitably I'll be like 2 minutes before doors and I'll be like, Mark, have you eaten? And he'll be like, no, I haven't eaten since 8 a.m. this morning. And it's like,
and I told you I needed to go to the toilet 2 hours ago. I still haven't done
I'm finally going to the toilet. There's always something. And I think we're getting better at trying to, as a crew, trying to work across. But
Martyn's been a lifesaver, by the way. Martyn and Matthew McGann, our head referee, like, they are adding years back to my life by how helpful they are. But I think I've just got that like toxic trait of like somehow drawing stress to myself. I'm like finding something else to do. And
it'll be like, why are you looking at seat reservations, Mark? You have a match. Like, let's just get someone to do it. Like, but no, I'll say this, and this is my, I never get to do this very much in public settings because Mark, I know if I do it on a microphone, Mark is looking very angry at the screens in Gorilla, and I can see McGann being like, no. Mark is to me like the hardest working person in wrestling. Like, no one really sees like Attack. The driving force behind Attack is Mark Andrews and how much time he puts into everything. I mean, a lot. We have a really great crew and some really great people we work with, like BA Productions and lots of really great people. But what people don't know is, especially recently, pretty much all the graphics are Mark. Pretty much all the videos are Mark. Like everything that comes from Attack, really. So we have a great crew that do help us with things. So I don't want to downplay their things because they're fantastic. But a lot of what you see is mostly Mark or me. Like, is kind of everything. Like, we're the ones responding to customer emails. We're the ones kind of doing all of that. And I think for Mark to put that on his shoulders, and as he has for 3 years, with the creative, effectively being the creative director of Attack, as well as all the logistics side of it, all the venue side of it, and then wrestling on top of that. And then training everybody, and then sorting out all the invoices, and sorting out the bar, and buying the drinks for things. Like, there are a million. But what Mark does at Attack should be a full-time job for anybody, and Mark balances that along with his training school, wrestling, defend his incredible wrestling gear school, which have amazing kick pads. Like, what he's able to do is incredible, and I think that's just a testament to kind of not just Mark, but that entire scene, and that kind of especially in South Wales, because there are some absolutely phenomenal people there that do so much work to get these shows to work, and he's going to do all of that and have a tables match. So because he's insane. So
I do appreciate those lovely words. I do appreciate it, and I am insane.
I think to be a wrestler, or like a wrestler promoter, or in your case, both, you sort of have to be, don't you? There needs to be a little crazy there.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, that's the thing as well, right? Like, it's funny. I'll say something that I don't normally say that often, right? When we brought back Attack, I actually took away the slogan, "We do it for the money," obviously, right? When we first started back in the day, we were just young kids, and we were like, it was because it was a charity show. We were like, oh, obviously we don't do it for the money, like sarcastic and stuff. And then I had this genuine guilt when I got released from WWE and I brought back Attack, and I was like, oh, I've got a mortgage to pay and like a daughter and a family to feed, and I felt like genuine, like a bit of guilt with that being the slogan. If I was taking any monetary value, to taking like a monthly wage, even a very humble one from the company. So I took it off. But the truth is, I think that slogan, that testament still stands very, very true. If you actually counted up the hours, and this is not just, not just for us, this is for like every wrestling company, I'm pretty sure, in the country. If you count up the hours of work that Martyn does and the hours of work that I do, like, we do not get paid well enough for that. But same with the wrestlers, same with the volunteers. Like, that's just kind of how wrestling is. I think you have to love it to the level where it looks insane. You have to love it that much to do it. Like, back in the day, me and Pete would always say to each other, if you don't enjoy it at this stage, you won't enjoy it at the top.
Yeah.
You know, you won't enjoy it when you're making millions. And that's just how it is. You know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't do it if we didn't really, really enjoy it. The truth is, when me and Martyn do finally get to sit down and talk about what matches we're booking and talk about storylines or talk about branding or talk about the new website or whatever it is, it's really fun. You know what I mean? Like, to an extent, it makes life very much, I don't want to say worth living. There's lots of things that make life worth living, but it makes life like incredibly fun, even if it comes with that stress, you know?
It's extremely rewarding. And I think, and I think that's, even looking at this show and just to cycle back to 15-year anniversary, we really wanted 15th anniversary, not just to be it would have been easy to make it kind of like a nostalgia show and it just kind of be that, and that's totally valid. But we really wanted it to be something that was not just like a celebration of Attack's 15, but really like kind of setting the table for the next 15 years of Attack. And that's something we were talking about. Our spending is just the amount of time we've gone back and forth on this card and what it should be and how we should present it and how it should, the people that need to be on it and all of that. Like, I feel like we're building something really special at Attack at the moment. And I think 15-year anniversary isn't the payoff to things. It's really the start of everything. So this year we're going to be running London more. We've got the Patreon, which will have launched this week. We've got the new branding that we've seen, which is the new logo, and everything is pushing Attack really into what it's going to be for the next 15 years. And for us, it's running bigger shows. It's really carving ourselves back into that scene as a major player, not just the quirky company in Wales, but a major UK player. Because I think what Mark said earlier is, we have an eye for talent. We have some of the best wrestlers in the world wrestle for Attack Pro Wrestling, and we want to give that the biggest stage possible. So we're really here this time now to put all those hours in to make it pay off, not just for us really, but just to give, there are guys who deserve bigger platforms. And the frustrating side maybe is sometimes Attack can give people that platform and then they go on to the bigger platform, whereas like we want to start doing that for them on a base level.
For sure. And I think like in terms of that perfectly, I feel like encapsulates everything you said. That perfectly encapsulates what the main event of this show is, which is Kanji versus Dani Luna, Attack Pro Wrestling Championship. Because again, Dani is someone who is the person that's come through Attack, that's come through the Welsh scene and made a name for herself, and now she's doing amazing out in America as well. And Kanji is this one that I feel like I've said it to her as well so many times, but like I think for so many years Kanji was just so underrated and so underutilized and so underappreciated, and it feels like the last couple of years especially has been this rise that maybe she should have had 5, 6, 7 years ago, where she's finally getting her flowers. Again, she's got the Attack belt, she's got the Resurgence belt as well. And it feels like those two companies are the ones that have really championed Kanji as a wrestler, championed what Kanji is actually all about and what she can do, and showcased how good she really is. And it feels like for her to have these two belts now at the moment is this perfect like culmination of what her story needed to be. And the fact that she's, again, like she's been so underappreciated, but now she's getting her flowers, now she's getting these opportunities, and now she's finally got the Attack belt. I said to her, like, it feels like she's an honorary Welshman at this point. Like, the crowd love her. She's so beloved down at Attack and in Wales generally. Like, it feels like it's such a perfect match to be putting on for a show like this, where it's sort of like the incoming honorary Welshman again against like the rising star who's like come through the scene and now made a name for herself in America. Like, it feels like it's a great combo.
I mean,
100%. You go, Martyn.
That match was the first one that was like penned in, right? Like that was always, I think there was never been a point where that wasn't going to be the main event for 15-year anniversary. I think it was just always for us, even when we first announced 15 back in October, November, it was always going to be that. Kanji's success is so massively deserved, and she deserves so much more on top of that. Not only is she brilliant, but I think it's just the example of like good things happening to good people. She's one of the sweetest, most professional people in the world. I mean, there's nobody on the scene that has a bad thing to say about Kanji. She's wonderful, and we've been very lucky to have her and be able to develop and help give her that platform at US champion. I think, if you watch the amazing main event with her and Ellis at Mistletoe, which is like on our on demand and it'll be on the Patreon and stuff. like people, when Hudson comes in and does the 1-2 as the ref, when Kanji wins that match, people literally jump out of their seats, and it's not a manufactured "this is awesome" type thing. It is pure. If you look at that crowd, it's just elation. And I think, that's just the stars aligning for Kanji. I think, she has so much more great things to come as well. But like I said, from our perspective, and I'll turn to Mark now, but from our perspective, like that was always the main event is Kanji Dani Luna. Because I mean, Dani Luna is just, talk about like a bona fide superstar. And to us, it was never really about kind of like, do we make it a women's main event, or do we do? It wasn't really about that. It was really, these are the two people that should main event Attack Pro Wrestling's biggest ever show. With a bullet.
100%, and I think Kanji, obviously, with the kind of the last year she's had in wrestling in general, but like especially at Attack, like of course she was going to be in the main event. But with Chloe, it's almost like, well, let's look at the last 10 years. You know what I mean? Like she moved her life from Cheltenham to, I believe Cheltenham, wasn't it? Yeah, Cheltenham to Wales to train at Dragon Bro back in the day. She would crew at all the Attack shows before she was ready to get on them. She then came from the bottom all the way up now to the star she is. She's put in the hustle. Like this, for her, the journey is like, it's pretty much through Attack, you know what I mean? Like she's been there from the opening matches and the scrambles to doing the main events, to being pretty much undefeated. I think maybe James Ellis cheats to beat her in the last year, but other than that, pretty much undefeated. And then her journey arguably even longer than Kanji's, so it will be a very, very special main event. I'm really excited for it. And again, most importantly, two of the best wrestlers in Europe right now, arguably two of the best wrestlers in the world right now, in my opinion. So yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
I mean, and you want to talk about definitions of insanity in wrestling, like Dani Luna. I'll throw back to, we had a show in Bristol live at the Loco. Again, I think that's actually on my YouTube. You can watch that for free. She had a match against Danny Jones, which is one of a super overlooked match from last year. Genuinely one of the best professional wrestling matches I have ever seen. Dani Luna came directly off a flight from Canada, wasn't it? Directly off a flight from TNA, straight from the airport to the venue. I think she maybe had a nap or something for like half an hour, and then came out and put on one of the best matches, hardest hitting matches I have ever seen. Like you just can't say enough good things about Dani Luna. And I think in some ways, because again, we were talking, because she's been in the scene in the UK for so long, she's kind of been a little bit taken for granted, I think sometimes. But no one puts in the work that Dani Luna does, and the grind that she does, flying transatlantic and then stepping off a plane straight into matches and just tearing it down. She is an absolute superstar, but a homegrown superstar who deserves every success.
And that's actually a regular occurrence, by the way. Like even our April 19th show that we've got coming up, she's already told me she will be getting off a flight that morning and then going to the show. So like, she is like, this is like just her life is wrestling, and I'm so proud of her as not just as someone who's kind of helped coach her over the years, but as her friend. I'm so proud to see what she's achieving. She's currently doing the hustle on her way to being one of the millionaires. You know what I mean? These are the years, the formative years that will get her to be on that main roster contract where she act, the WrestleMania main eventer, or like the Wrestle Kingdom, start like shit. Like these are the years which they're leading there. You know what I mean? She's overdue. Yeah, tons of flowers, all of the flowers.
She is. So excited to be able to do some of that at 15 for both of those people, because they're just fantastic.
Absolutely. Big love, both of them. And again, Mark, before we sort of like start wrapping up, I mean, obviously we've got another match to talk about, because we haven't even talked about Paul London yet, because with yourself and Dani both in singles matches, Flash has needed a new subculture member to come in and battle Lykos. Again, I feel like with those three, like obviously excluding Paul London, but like with those three, again, it's a very Attack three. It's a very it's three wrestlers who I feel like in the last sort of like, even before the last sort of like 3 years when you returned, sort of had defined Attack. And obviously Lykos too has come in and done a fantastic job with Lykos, forming Lykos Gym. But Lykos and Flash especially are these two that have been such stalwarts of the scene, who have been around for so long, who have done it all, who know what it takes to get to where you want to be. And I feel like this match, with again just the added craziness of Paul London, it just feels like a very attack match, because it's the stalwart attack guys and then the mental edge of Paul London where you have no idea what he's going to bring.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's funny. Even though attack's always been like, weird and wonderful, and we did wacky gimmicks, I do think at its core, it's very, very technically incredible, to be honest. I do think like we're wrestling snobs, you know what I mean? And we always have been, whether we started when me and Pete were running it, or when Jim Lee was running it, when Chris Brooks was running it. We've always been wrestling snobs, and we always want very, very technically good wrestlers. I think the fact that we have 3 incredible wrestlers in Flash and both Lykos Jim, and then you add like a pioneer of the style of wrestling, which we all adore. AJ recently with his retirement, everyone talks about how incredibly, inspiring and influential he was on the scene. But you got to throw guys like Paul London in there as well. If you look at Paul London, like the 3 men in this match, along with most of the roster on that show, will look up to Paul London and they'll see the guy who they saw in Ring of Honor years ago, who they saw in TNA early days, who, for myself, I'd go to a house show with a Paul London sign when I was 13 years old because I wanted to root for the work rate guy who did 450s and shooting star presses, So I think it's great, as weird and wonderful as Paul London is, he's also just this pioneer of the cruiserweight technical wrestling style that so many guys have based their entire careers off of, especially Lykos Jim. Look at those two. Like, I know that for those two and for Flash, this is an incredibly special match because they're in the ring with someone who they've looked up to since they were teenagers, So it's actually, not only is it like a really fun for us to have Paul back, but it's actually incredibly sentimental and kind of special, I think, for everyone in that match.
Yeah, because Paul is one of those guys that, again, like you said, has proven that you can do it both. There's people who can be great technical wrestlers. There's people who can be sort of great, weird, wacky comedy wrestlers. And then in the middle, there's a certain few, and Paul London is one of them, where they can do both. Because again, he's had all that incredible technical run, like you say, coming through ROH and proving that he's a great cruiserweight wrestler. And then after leaving WWE, he's coming like Lucha Underground and stuff like that, and what he's done since, just weird as hell. But both are equally valid. Both are incredible. And to be able to do both and be able to put both into one match is a rare thing. Not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And when we had him here last summer, he, I think it was incredible. I think the fans were just like, what the hell? It was great. We loved it, didn't we?
Yeah, Paul's the man. He's the best.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, it's going to be a huge show. And before we wrap up, I need to ask as well, again, before we're talking about before recording, about your return to London, because again, that feels like a huge moment for Attack. It feels like you said, something you've been building towards for a long time. And it feels like something that is really special in the fact that I know over the last 3 years since you come back, the Welsh scene seems to be where people want to be, not just wrestlers, but fans. I know so many fans who month in, month out travel to Wales for shows from London. And that feels like something that didn't really happen that much pre-pandemic. But now people are traveling out of London to go to shows more and more because the talent is there, because the shows that you're putting on are so good. So now to be able to bring that show back to London, how much does that mean to you guys?
A lot. I think a lot of this also came from conversations we were having. There are so many, we're really lucky to have so many amazing fans and people in wrestling that are willing to make a journey over to see us and travel to see us. And I think we were talking to some of those guys, you people, whether it's like Kyle, O'Donnell, Charlie, there's loads of people like that. I don't want to name people because then obviously you always forget people and miss people off lists, but loads of fantastic people. And we were like, well, we ask these people to come to us all the time. Let's start coming to them more. And we can always say that we're sat in a kind of Welsh bubble, but to really go out and make us feel like we're a full UK company was super important to us. There's never not been an appetite for us to run London. It's just been finding a venue, right, mate?
Yeah, 100%. It's just that's the thing. When we did come back in 2023, people forget you lose all your venues, right? We ran the Bristol Trinity Centre, another venue had taken that venue from us, and a lot of venues then they weren't allowed. Well, it's kind of like an unwritten rule in wrestling: you don't step on another company's venue. But also venues themselves will be like, we already have a wrestling company who works here, right? So we lost our Bristol venue, we lost our Cheltenham venue, and then the Dome up in London, which was an incredible venue that we loved working with, they stopped allowing wrestling in general. I believe they did a few shows with Progress after COVID, but by the time we came back, they weren't allowing wrestling anymore. suddenly, like, finding venues is, again, a boring logistic which fans won't understand. And I mean, a lot of fans might see it as like, just go there, do that venue. But like the amount of venues that allow wrestling is very little. The cost, you got to remember, right? Like a lot of these venues, gig venues, they're used to filling up 1,000 people standing, and then you add a wrestling ring and a load of seats, and suddenly that amount goes down to 500. And suddenly you're paying out for a 1,000-seat event, 1,000-capacity venue, but you're bringing in half amount of people. It's quite hard to run wrestling shows. It's not very profitable when you look at it from like a venue perspective, right? So to even find a London venue, we've been looking pretty much consistently for the last 2 years, and finally we've landed with the Arches, which, don't get me wrong, is incredible. Like the fact that we now have train Arches in Bristol and in London, we are becoming the under the train Arches, the wrestling company. So we're really, really excited for it. And we just hope that the fans that do travel down, or even the fans from Wales that travel up for shows like Rev Pro and Riot, we hope that those fans come to this show. It's going to be special. We're really putting in a lot of effort, and we're really hoping that, off the back of 15-year anniversary, only pretty much like less than 2 weeks later, we're going to be in London. We want to carry on that momentum. We want to carry on the momentum from the biggest show we've ever done going into being back into London. So, yeah, I would urge all fans to please buy a ticket because it's going to be an incredible show.
Yeah, it's going to be a really can't miss one over, I think, bank holiday weekend as well. So it's going to be an incredible one. Just one match I think we glossed over, and I got the time for everybody, but one match I did want to just draw on 15-year anniversary is the match I'm most excited for, to be honest, is Drew Parker and Nico Angelo as well. Yeah. I think that is going to that testimony we were saying before about how we've been very careful about how we utilize people kind of from Attack's history who are still very active. And I'm not no way saying that, but like about when's the right time to bring people back and what are the right matches to do it with. And I mean, that's a match. I mean, Drew as well for the London show too. Having Drew Parker back at Attack Pro Wrestling is so fantastic. We're so excited for it, and him and Nico they're just going to tear that place down. So I'm so excited for that match.
That's going to be a brutal match, isn't it? That's going to be like hard hitting, properly hard hitting.
Yeah, I think it's the first time they've ever been in a ring together. I think Nico was saying so. It's the first time they've ever even like tags and stuff. And Drew is someone again who a Welsh wrestler, Attack original, who has gone on to do such incredible things over in the US and Japan and things. So so excited for that match. I think it's gonna be a really good one.
Yeah,
for sure. Right. Well, that does bring us in the podcast. If you guys have time, we've got a quick fire feature here called Build a Wrestler if you want to take part, but that's only if you have time, if you're good with that.
Yeah, go on, let's go for it.
Right. So I'm gonna have you both go. I'll come to you each in turn. But essentially I'm gonna give you stats like your 2K fact sheet, and you've got to pick a wrestler for each one. We're building your dream indie wrestler here. So no one signed. Well, we say a few signed. You're allowed Dani. You're allowed Leon Slater. You're allowed Leo Rush.
Okay.
In terms of
Parker, don't worry. We'll do no one signed. That's good. Let's make it interesting.
And you're not allowed to say the same person twice. Mark, if you want, you can say yourself though.
Oh, I can't say myself twice.
No, otherwise you'd go for all of them, wouldn't you? But
I would.
We'll get started now. Mark, we'll start with you. We'll come to you each individually for each one before moving on. So then the first one is strength.
Nico Angelo.
It's a fair shout. Martyn?
Jay Joshua.
Yeah.
What Jay can do is incredible.
Love it. Next one is Mark. We'll come to you now. Speed.
Leo Rush. We are allowed Leo Rush.
Yeah, you're allowed Leo Rush. Yeah.
I'm going to say, he's out at the moment with a really unfortunate injury, and wishing him all the love. But Shane Hook is just absolutely incredible. And again, talk about guys who deserve bigger platforms and will get that. Shane Hook is fantastic, and what he's able to do is incredible. Yeah, big love, Shane. It's a gutting that he's out at the moment, but man, he's going to be big. He's going to be a star. You can tell. Yeah. Nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, love that. The next one is Martyn. We'll come to you first with this one. Is charisma.
That's a really hard one. There's loads of great people. I think James Ellis is probably one of the best people on the mic in the UK at the moment. He just exudes it. So yeah, James for me. I think James is fantastic.
I'm going to go with Charles Crowley.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, excellent choice. Next one. I feel like I know who you're both going to say here is technical ability. Or is it tougher than I think?
Alex Shelley signed, didn't he? Damn.
Wrestler answer.
What's that?
Such a wrestler answer.
Oh, yeah.
Alex Shelley.
Oh, Johnny Saint isn't signed. Johnny Saint.
Mick Manners. Ken Nagasaki?
I'm going for Johnny Saint.
Oh, insane.
Do you know what? I'm going to go Mark Andrews.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, love
I'm
that.
a Poundland Johnny Saint, so, it works.
Amazing. The next one is high flying ability. Martyn, we'll come to you first on that one.
Oh God! Oh, I've used up my Shane Hook. Do you know what? Like, there are loads of really great high flyers. Like I got George Hunter as well. What he can do is incredible. I know Leon Cage is the kind of obvious answer here, but I'm going to go Nino. Nino's my guy. I think Nino is just absolutely phenomenal, and what he's able to do is jaw dropping.
I can't say the same. Can I say the same as
You
Martyn?
can say the same as Martyn. You just can't say it if you've already said it.
Yeah, okay, I'll go Nino as well because he's a very unique taste of high flying, which
Great shout.
But Leon Cage very close. Like they're both amazing. But yeah.
Both insane. The next one is a promo ability, and now it's interesting because you've used Crowley.
And I used Ellis.
You've used Ellis. So Mark, what about you first?
Can I use a retired indie wrestler?
Yeah, go on.
I'm going for a bit of a out the box one. The Wild Boar does not get his appreciation. People do not appreciate him enough for his promo ability. Incredible promos.
Yeah, I like that shout. Martyn, what about you?
There are so many really good guys. I am going to say I'm going to be really lame. I'm going to say Charles Crowley. Because I didn't.
Nice, go for it. That's not lame, you know.
I stole your answer. I'm going to say Crowley for this. Crowley's great, and again, like I keep saying this all the time, but we had him at Bristol a few months ago, and he's just such a great guy and such a lovely guy.
Yeah,
Great shout. Only a couple more. The next one is ring gear.
Oh. Who's got the best gear? The thing is, Shane Hook makes wrestling gear, so he's kind of like the ultimate. Who's got the best gear? Oh, Myla Grace.
I was going to say Myla Grace. Her gear is amazing.
Well, she's signed, but
no, we'll allow Myla.
Incredible gear.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go for the same answers as Mark because I've already done one. I think Myla's gear is amazing. Nico Angelo has great gear.
Yeah,
it's just a great look, Nico Angelo.
Excellent choices. Next one is a finisher.
It's got to be Leon Slater.
Yeah, it's a great one.
50, coolest wrestling move of all time.
I was going to say if neither of you had said Nico, I would have said Nico.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's the personality.
Nico's is lethal. Yeah.
This is where I think I'll use my Leon Cage. I love the stomp bomb.
Yeah, very cool.
Nice. And then the final one then is entrance. Who's got the best entrance?
We both used Crowley. Is it music or just entrance?
No, like the whole entrance.
Whole shebang.
There's someone that we talked about on this 15th anniversary card who basically everyone says.
I mean, Tommy Frill is a good shout. Is that what you were referring to?
I was talking about the person who's facing Tommy Brill.
Oh, Cara, true. Well, they both have, yeah.
Both have exceptional entrances.
Do both, yeah.
I'll cut the cue. I'm going to say Nixon Newell. Nixon Newell has is an iconic entrance, but when she returned at press start, especially for us in the surprise return, Nixon's the best. Like I absolutely love Nixon.
is an iconic entrance music. Like it's the one.
And again, I feel like I say this about everyone we're talking about, but just if you want to talk about just a wonderful human being who is just the best person, Nixon Newell is awesome. I'm
going to go for this is very biased. Someone who has an entrance who quite often I am alongside them. Eddie Dennis, Andrew WK, get a beer, chug it down, let's party.
Yes, party. Again, two epic, like just the songs are perfect for those characters, right?
Yeah.
Those are great ones. Those are two excellent wrestlers. These are like multi-time world champions right here.
Imagine having Eddie Ennis's music, but Nico Angelo's strength.
Oh.
Nino's high-flying ability. What?
I was going to say something like who you got
the greatest gear.
I'm the greatest gear.
Mental. I love that. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. It's been great talking about all things Attack. It's been amazing seeing what you guys have been doing since your return. Absolutely buzzing for the 15th anniversary show. Again, Great Hall Cardiff Student Union. There may be a few tickets left by the time this comes out, so if you haven't got them, go and get them if they're available. But we always give our final word to our guests. So, Martyn, I'll come to you first and then Mark. But for anyone watching this who hasn't got their tickets to the 15th anniversary show yet, or might want to come and see you guys in London, or for anything else you guys are doing for the rest of the year and beyond, why should people be coming to check out Attack Pro Wrestling?
I think personally, from an Attack Pro Wrestling perspective, we are starting to really see a payoff to a lot of groundwork we've put in, both on talent and creative. This year, some of the things we have planned are going to surprise people because the scale of what we're looking to do is next level. And I think here's a really good opportunity for 15-year anniversary. It's the perfect jumping in point that if you haven't really experienced Attack before, the whole point of this show is to make it a quintessential Attack show to be your ground level. And the London shows are just following on from that. We're launching the Patreon to give people way more access ever than Attack Pro Wrestling before. We're trying to come to more places. 15-year anniversary. I know there's a lot of professional wrestling shows in the UK that month. I think 15-year anniversary is going to be an incredible show with the talent that we've just assembled and put together. Our April shows are going to be fire too. But I really think the main thing I would say is Attack has always been special. And I think this year is going to be a particularly special year for Attack that will mean more to you if you've got in now than if you get in 3 months.
Yeah. I'm going to say something that will make me sound particularly obnoxious, but I don't even care. See it first at Attack. It will happen first. If you want to be, before the band blows up, if you want to know what their first EP sounded like, that's what Attack Pro Wrestling is. If you want to know of Nino Bryan before he blows up at Rev Pro, come to Attack. If you want to see Kanji before she's the big superstar, come to Attack. All the other names that I've mentioned on this podcast, see it first at Attack Pro Wrestling, because quite often we set trends. And I don't care if promoters think I'm arrogant and obnoxious for that. It's true. Come at me on socials and I'll argue that point face to face. I believe that we set a lot of trends at Attack Pro Wrestling. If you want to see it first, come to us.